Hey friends, this is Danny with Triple H Farms. Out in the garden this evening, we're going to do a little bit different video. My daughter's video on for me tonight, and our tomato videos. Anytime I post about our tomatoes, it always seems to get the most views, which obviously tells me a lot of people are interested in our tomatoes or in tomato growing. So I thought I would make, or I did, I make a little list of a few things that we do each and every year that really seems to help our production, helps us be more successful growing tomatoes. So as you can see behind me, we've got, I don't know, about 120 plants here planted. Um, we've got several different varieties. We got a lot of videos on when we were planting these. You can go back and watch those if you'd like. But the number one thing that we do that to help with our tomato production is drip irrigation. We lay drip tape down under every row of tomatoes that we plant, and this does a lot of benefits us in a lot of ways. The first and foremost, it saves water usage. It's very efficient. You're burying that line, and that water is right at the roots where it needs to be, right at the root zone. So that's the number one thing that drip irrigation does for us. It saves us money on our water bill and saves us time. It also, like I said, puts the water right at the root zone, and that goes for the fertilizer too. So when we get ready to feed our plants, we pump that right into the irrigation, and that food is right there where it needs to be. And because the water is right at the root zone, it also cuts down on the weeds and grass pressure because we're not overhead watering and watering that top inch or so of soil where most of your weed and grass seeds are laying dormant ready to sprout. And then, like I said, the drip irrigation aids us in our fertilization and feeding patterns. And every time that we feed our plants, it's just easier to do it with the drip irrigation. Second thing we do, and I think this is one of the most important things, is when we plant our plants, we use a pre-plant fertilizer. And the one we used this year, or the last couple of years, is called Coop Grow, and you can buy that online several places, but it's an organic fertilizer. It's a pretty balanced fertilizer. I think it's like a 3-4-3 or something like that is its analysis. So we put that down in our furrow or in a hole when we plant our plants. We also like to put in a scoop of, and I say a scoop, like a tablespoon of C90 minerals. This is like basically evaporated seawater, and it's got a lot of trace minerals in it. So we like to add some of that to our plants. And then we use a handful or a quarter of a cup of worm castings in each hole. And those worm castings really help to add beneficial bacteria into our soil, and it really seems to help our plants get a good jump start. So a good pre-plant fertilizer is a must. Now the third thing, and this is always commented in a lot of our videos, is the plastic wrap. As you can see, some of our plants here have plastic wrap wrapped around these cages, and this is just some shipping plastic that we pick up and we use. This plastic wrap serves several purposes, but the main thing we started using it for several years ago was to help protect these young transplants from the wind. Here in Oklahoma, we get a lot of storms and a lot of wind blowing, and if you're not careful, these young transplants, they'll get broken by the wind, and they just take a beating and they don't grow as well. So this plastic helps to protect them, and then it also serves as a greenhouse effect, kind of. I've tested it before in years past. The temperature inside of this cage where this plastic is oftentimes 10 degrees or better warmer than a cage that doesn't have plastic on it. So it helps to retain heat and helps these plants really get a good kickstart, especially when you're trying to get them in quickly and early, I should say, in April, and the nights are still kind of cool. Now, we don't leave the plastic on the whole time. After these plants are about 6 weeks old or so, we go ahead and pull the plastic off, as we've started doing over here with some of these plants. I just pulled the plastic off of these cages this last weekend and kind of mulched around them a little bit with some leaves. But you can see these tomatoes look awesome. And this right here is a good indicator when it's time to start pulling off that plastic. You start seeing a lot of blooms coming on your plants. That means they're far enough along that you can pull that plastic off, and then you're going to change things up a little bit. And that's where I'm going to talk about next. The fourth thing is a good fertilization program. So when we plant our plants, I mentioned the pre-plant fertilizer. But once we get them in the ground, we start feeding these plants about every 2 weeks, and we like to use a liquid fertilizer. This year we're using Agri-Thrive, again a balanced fertilizer. It's a liquid based, water soluble I should say, and we feed these plants about every 2 weeks. So by the time this plastic comes off at about 6 weeks, these plants have been fed about 3 times already with a good balanced fertilizer. Now once we take the plastic off, we switch gears a little bit, and we'll start pumping a little more phosphorus and potassium to these plants. And so we switch from the Agri-Thrive fertilizer to a fertilizer called Master's Blend. Master's Blend is it's a powder, granular, but it is water soluble, and that's what we like about it. We can get that, and we can mix it, and we can inject it right into our drip tape and feed all of these plants all at once. So it saves us a lot of time versus having to hand water everything. But that higher, I think the Master's Blend is like a 18-30-38 or something like that. That's the analysis of it, and so it's a lot higher in phosphorus and potassium. What that's going to do is really start to push these plants to put on more blooms, and the more blooms you got, obviously the more tomatoes you're going to have. So we're fixing to start switching over and starting to pump these plants with the Master's Blend. We've got to get the plastic off of these next couple of rows, but anyway, the fertilization is key. You've got to feed these plants if you really want to boost your yields. So the next thing, and the fifth thing, is we like to use a product called Yield Booster or calcium nitrate. We'll add that at this stage in the plant's life, and that we do usually just top dress it or water it on top. We don't put it through our injector, but the Yield Booster, the calcium nitrate, that's just helping reduce problems with blossom end rot on your tomatoes. And right now, right now is the time we want to do that, because these tomatoes are starting to set some fruit. I'm not sure if this one has any, but you look in some of these plants and they've got some little tomatoes already starting to set there. So we like to apply that at this point. And then the last thing I want to talk about is just inspection. Once you get the plastic off and you're starting to fertilize these plants, the Master's Blend will feed about every week. Every 7 to 10 days we're feeding these plants. That kind of is dependent upon rainfall. Right now it's been super wet, so we haven't been able to feed them as much because we just don't want to overwater. But anyway, once you're out here and all you have to do is just to feed these plants, you need to be walking through here and inspecting them. And what you're looking for is pests and disease and things that are going to hinder your crop. So we're looking at our leaves to make sure that they don't have any curl to them, that they're well hydrated. We're looking for tomato blight, yellowing of the leaves, or sometimes a rust spot on the leaves. Another thing, pests that we deal with here in Oklahoma a lot is the whitefly, and of course the dreaded horned worm. If anybody's ever raised tomato before and seen a horned worm, you know what I'm talking about. They'll ruin a tomato plant overnight. So the last thing I can tell you is just to inspect your plants. Come out here and walk through them every couple of days. Check and see how they're doing. If you're seeing some pests, you're seeing some disease, don't be scared to treat it. I mean, we don't like to spray our gardens any more than we have to. In fact, we prefer not to. But if it means saving a crop, we do have some organic options that we'll use. A couple of those are spinosad and bug out. We also use neem oil. All of those are good organic options to spray, and they may not totally eradicate the pest problems, but they'll definitely cut them back and help boost your yields. So that's just some of the things that we do on a regular basis every year to help our tomato crop be successful. We raise about 100 to 120 tomato plants every year, and we eat lots of tomatoes and we give some away. We make a lot of salsa, and we'll still sell probably over 1,000 pounds of tomatoes this year. So take care of your plants, follow these steps, and I think you'll be very successful growing your tomatoes. We appreciate you watching, and be sure and give this video a thumbs up, like and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, get dirty and grow some food.